And in fact, we have the special privilege of hearing from Damon himself, the creator and the executive producer of HBO's Watchmen, Damon Lindelof.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. On behalf of the entire cast and crew who made Watchmen, it's a genuine honor to be part of today's conversation. Every single person who helped craft the sequence you just screened understood the tremendous responsibility of filming the events of 1921 with reverence and authenticity. This would be the only way for the audience to understand that even though it was presented in the context of a fictional story, what happened in Greenwood was real. Every single horrifying detail. When the show premiered last October, the word Watchmen did not trend on Twitter, but something else did. Black Wall Street. It was clear that a large part of the audience was having the same experience I had had when I first learned about the massacre. They were confused and embarrassed for not knowing it had happened. The burden of educating white folks too often falls upon those who have historically suffered at our hands. But this time around, in real time on social media and through exquisitely crafted think pieces and insightful podcasts, that education occurred without shame or judgment. It was an incredible thing to witness. The young boy in that sequence is Will Reeves, the hero of our story. Actually, the superhero of our story, because most superheroes are orphans. Batman loses his parents, Superman loses his too, and his planet. His entire world is destroyed. Greenwood was Will Reeves's world, and a century after its decimation, he returns to meet his granddaughter, who, unaware of his past, carries his trauma inside every cell of her body. She hides that trauma by wearing a mask, and Will tells her he did the same thing for a long time, and now he realizes that was a mistake. The mask was hiding the pain, and now it has to come off. Wounds need air, he tells her. Today's event is that air. The more we talk about Greenwood, the more air we give to its memory. In remembering the massacre, we must also remember what was massacred. Black Wall Street was not just a devastating loss, but an historic achievement. If we have any regret in Watchmen, it's that we did not commit more time to showing what an incredible place Greenwood was before its destruction. Fortunately, that is exactly what the Greenwood Rising Project will do. A museum-grade facility that will commemorate the remarkable legacy of Black Wall Street. So many fans of the show have told me that they didn't know about what happened in Tulsa, and now that they did know, they had no idea what to do with that knowledge. Well, you can do a couple things. The first is continue to give it air, to tell the story of what happened. But you can also give support, whatever you can, to Greenwood Rising at www.gofundme.com/F/rebuild Black Wall Street. We are humbled to be a part of today's events and wish you all the best in these complicated times. Stay safe and God bless.
Thank you, Damon. Right now, I would like to thank especially Cox Communications and their dynamic production team for providing the technology to share this live event with you. I also want to thank the Greenwood Cultural Center for graciously allowing us to use the historic Mabel B. Little House to host this broadcast. 99 years ago today, an angry mob violently destroyed 35 square blocks of this prominent African-American community with fire, guns, and racially motivated violence. These dark, deadly deeds remain one of the worst, least known acts of racial violence in American history. It's a traumatic story, and it's one that we are committed to sharing with the world to continue a real dialogue about racial justice, reconciliation, healing, and unity. Today, I have an incredible lineup of speakers who will provide their brief reflections about this tragic event and where we stand 99 years later. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable United States Senator for the state of Oklahoma, Senator James Langford.
Americans love looking at our genealogy, our family tree. We want to go back and look into history and see where we come from. what our family was like. We want to be able to tell our children about our family and about our heritage. We want to tell them the good, the great, the bad, and sometimes the very ugly. As Oklahomans, we have the same thing. We have great stories as Oklahomans. We've overcome a lot. We have some bad stories, and we have some really ugly moments as well. We should be able to tell the next generation all of those, because all of those are moments we can learn from and grow from. 99 years ago, the city of Tulsa was on fire. Hundreds of African Americans lay dead in the street. Thousands of African Americans were homeless. It was the tail end of the worst race massacre in American history. We should pause. We should remember. And we should see if there are things that we can still learn and see what we can do to be able to grow in the future. Now, a lot has changed in the last 99 years. Tulsa has an African American police chief. We have African Americans that are on the city council and the state senate and the state house of representatives, integrating leadership all over our community and, quite frankly, all over our state. That's a good thing. But are we finished? I would submit no. There's still more to learn, and there's still more to know and to implement. You see, I'm convinced, and I've shared with Oklahomans for years now, that 100 years after the worst race massacre in American history, the entire country will pause May the 31st, 2021, and will for a moment look at Oklahoma and ask a very reasonable question. What has Oklahoma learned about race that can be shared with the rest of the country? Where have we grown? What has happened with us? And what can we learn from our history to affect our future? It's a reasonable question, but it can only be answered if we take a long pause to look at our history and then take a long pause to look at our present, to literally take tragedy to triumph in the days ahead.
Thank you, Senator. You have been a long-time supporter and friend of the Commission, and we appreciate your continued commitment, leadership, and support. Up next, I'd like to invite the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinal to provide his remarks. Please welcome Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinal.
Bill, thank you. And thank you for those watching online today. It's an honor to serve as the Lieutenant Governor, 17th Lieutenant Governor in the state of Oklahoma, but also a proud Tulsan, someone who grew up 5 minutes from the Greenwood District, who grew up in a city in elementary school through middle school and high school, who learned very little about this massacre. And thankfully, in the state of Oklahoma today, we have new momentum to tell this story and learn from it. But that the city, the state, and the federal level cannot thank those enough who have stood up and have said, be brave, be bold, the story must be told. This story in a new, powerful way. And today in the state of Oklahoma, it is very exciting to tell you, and those of you all watching right now, about the Greenwood Rising Memorial Museum that will be built next year. It is critically important that during the 100th anniversary, this year being the 99th, that again, we tell the story, but we learn from it. We firmly believe that this will be a pilgrimage type of opportunity from all cultures all over the world to come to the center of the country, the hub of America, to learn about how we, again, defeat and combat racism and bigotry in this country. We want to learn from this, and we want Tulsa to lead the way, and we absolutely can do it. It's why we are so, again, thrilled that the state of Oklahoma has become a partner with the Centennial Commission. And leading forward, we will be able to, again, build and teach the Black entrepreneurship that we have in this community. Folks from around the world coming to Tulsa to learn about how to take those skills back into their communities all across the country and all across the world. We're going to tell this story. We're going to tell this story the right way. And I truly believe that Tulsa is going to lead the way in telling this story and combating, again, racism and bigotry in this country. Oklahoma can do it. We cannot just be a top 10 state without addressing this massacre and teaching it the right way moving forward. So thank you to the local leadership right here in the Greenwood District who led the way on this, who showed the city, who showed the state, and who showed, again, their federal delegation how to do this right. We're going to take direction from you, but I assure you that the state of Oklahoma will be with you every step of the way. God bless you. God bless this city, this state, and this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Now I'd like to introduce the founder and visionary of our commission, Oklahoma State Senator Kevin Matthews. Senator Matthews has been our ambassador for several years now, and we wouldn't be where we are today without his committed leadership. It was Senator Matthews that started asking the tough questions back in 2015 when we were about to face heading into the 6th year, or heading into 6 years, heading into the 100th, the Centennial of this massacre. And we thank Senator Matthews for his leadership and for being the founder and the chair of this commission. Ladies and gentlemen, our founder, Senator Kevin Matthews.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. But first, I have a statement from one of our top supporters, Mr. Mike Bloomberg, who is a recent presidential candidate. I want to read a few quotes from him. And he says something about this ugliest chapter in our American history. And it's a part of the 400 years of racial oppression that happened in this country, where generations of Black Americans were robbed of their labor and wealth and denied them an equal opportunity to pursue the American dream. In 2019, he visited Tulsa to announce the public art project, the Bloomberg Art Project that we secured here in Tulsa. He had never learned about this like many Americans. And he said that he wanted to bring that here. And not only did he want to bring it here, but as he started his presidential campaign, he decided to launch an ambitious agenda to grow Black wealth and increase the number of Black homeowners and small business owners. And he says, I know, or he knew, that there was no better place to announce it than right here in Tulsa. He met people like Reverend Turner at Vernon Chapel AME, and he says, these are his words, as I quote, the recent killings of unarmed Black men, including in Georgia by vigilantes and Minnesota by police, are painful reminders of how essential and urgent this work is. As the people of Tulsa and all around the nation mark the 99th anniversary of the Greenwood Massacre this weekend, let us all recommit ourselves to the kinds of changes we need to make in our governments and communities to build a future. As I said in Tulsa earlier this year, where color and capital are no longer related, and where the promise of American equality rings true in every community, as quoted by Mike Bloomberg. And now, as the chair of this commission and senator for this area, I'd like to thank Roger Ramsire, Tiffany Bruton, Bailey Hobson, and the entire Cox communication team for partnering with us to broadcast this very meaningful presentation today. And as the founder of this commission, I'm so proud to stand with you to remember Greenwood. I'm so proud of this state, the state of Oklahoma, for supporting this commission with Senate Bill 17, the legislation and funding that they have partners with us on. We also have a mission of educating Oklahomans about the most horrific act of domestic terrorism in the nation. I'm proud of the active commissioners, steering committee members, and public-private partners who are endlessly committing their time and resources to foster an environment that allows us to respectfully honor our victims and survivors by telling this story. From the recent news of the State of the Art History Center Greenwood Rising, that will soon be built at the southeast corner of Greenwood and Archer, to the Teachers Institute and the curriculum that allows K through 12 teachers to develop the skills to effectively teach students this history across the state. We're busy and are soliciting the strength and commitment of our community's important work. But our efforts would not be possible without community partnerships and open communication with our residents, elected officials, philanthropists, and stakeholders. 2021 is quickly approaching, and the world will be looking at us to see where we are 100 years later. We need every resident, every elected official, every corporation, and every nonprofit, every church, every school, every tourism entity and economic development entity in the state to come together and be part of this upcoming centennial. Find your place in this work. Develop your 2021 business strategies to include a line item about commemorating the centennial. Thank you, Senator Langford, Governor Stitt, Lieutenant Governor Pinal, Secretary of Transportation Tim Gatz, Mayor Bynum, Tulsa Community Foundation, the Healy Foundation, our police chief that's here with us today, the George Kaiser Family Foundation, our grassroots funders, and all of the corporate and community organizations that continue to support the commission and the legacy of Greenwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Matthews. Thank you for your leadership in where we are and where we're going. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to the Honorable Mayor GT Bynum, Mayor of the City of Tulsa. Mayor Bynum.
Take that up just a little bit.
Dr. A.C. Jackson is one of the great Tulsans in the history of our city. He was regarded by the founders of the Mayo Clinic as one of the best surgeons in the entire country in the early 20th century. He invented surgical tools that are still in use today, a century later. He served as president of the Oklahoma State Medical Association, and he was one of the founders of the Booker T. Washington Hospital in Tulsa. And that is where he spent the night of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, working until past 3 o'clock in the morning, tending to victims of that event. He then returned to his home, and the next morning, as he was walking down the street, he was approached by a group of white men, and he raised his hands to surrender to them, and they shot him anyway. Dr. Jackson, at the age of 40, one of the foremost surgeons in the entire country at the time, was killed solely because he was a black man in Tulsa. And a lot of the time, we talk about the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, and we talk about the scale of the event and how it was the worst in our country's history, and how much property was destroyed and how many lives were lost. But in that discussion, a lot of the time, the individual stories can get lost, and with that, the full scale of the tragedy. Dr. Jackson's story is a reminder to us of how important it is that we tell the stories of those who died and also those who rebuilt following the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And that is why the city of Tulsa has made it a priority to identify the missing graves from the 1921 Race Massacre. Only by telling these stories and learning about the lives of those who lived it can we truly know about the history of our city and how to prevent such an event from ever happening again. When you hear Dr. Jackson's story, you know that it wasn't a race riot. A surgeon with his hands raised being killed because he's black only happens because of a race massacre. And so we hope, as we pursue the truth in this search for the graves moving forward, that we will continue to uncover truth, that we will report it to history as it really happened, and that it will help us as a city grow and do better by all Tulsans moving forward. I want to thank the organizers of this event and all Tulsans who are participating in it. We have so much work to do as a city, but working together, we can do right, not just by the victims of the event, but by their descendants and by all future Tulsans that will come after us.
Thank you, Mayor Bynum. And now, to provide perspective from the Tulsa Police Department, as an African-American male, it gives me great privilege and honor to introduce the first African-American Chief of Police for the city of Tulsa. Please welcome Chief Wendel Franklin.
Thank you, Phil. I grew up in North Tulsa and attended Tulsa Public Schools. I never imagined I'd have an opportunity to stand in the capacity as police chief of a department that I spent more than 20 years on. I'm honored to be here, and I'm proud of the trust that's invested in me by Mayor Bynum, and I'm up to the task and fully committed to elevating the Tulsa Police Department in all respects. As Tulsa's first Black police chief, I represent progress. I accept that, I get that. But what I don't represent is mission accomplished. We have much work to do in the realm of race relations, not just within our department, but throughout our city and throughout our nation. In 1921, the Tulsa Police Department was complicit in the worst of the so-called race riots of the 20th century, the 1921 Race Massacre. Law enforcement officers neglected their duty to protect Tulsa Black citizens as roving mobs destroyed the Greenwood District, the Black sector that spawned the beloved Black Wall Street. My predecessor, Chief Chuck Jordan, publicly apologized on behalf of the Tulsa Police Department just a few years ago. It was unexpected, it was bold, and it was the right thing to do. That apology was necessary, but now we must do more. Today, we're building relationships in our community. In some cases, it seems like two. Okay, it looks like we lost the feed, but sometimes it seems like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But despite those setbacks, we must not lose sight of our goals. A city defined with equity and equality, a city welcoming of diversity and inclusion, a city safe and secure for ourselves and for those who pass through it. In closing, I'm proud to be your police chief. I'm even more proud of the work that we've done, are doing, and will do together to be a national model for effective relation-based policing and community policing. As Tulsans, let us continue the path from tragedy to triumph, 1 step at a time, marching forward. The brighter the future, we all deserve a brighter future, and Tulsa Police Department is all in on that.
Thank you, Chief Franklin. And now, to close our presentation today, please welcome a very, very special guest. Not only is she a member of the 1921 Centennial Commission, but she is also, recently, she was appointed by the mayor to be the chair of the Oversight Committee for the Tulsa Mass Graves investigation. And so it is my honor to introduce a descendant of the Black Wall Street legacy. Please welcome Mrs. Brenda Alfred.
Thank you so much, Phil. My name is Brenda Nails Alfred, and I am the proud granddaughter of James and Vassonora Nails Sr. and the great niece of Henry Nails, who were the proud owners of the Nails Brothers Shoe Shop and Record Shop, located at 121 North Greenwood Avenue and various locations throughout the community. They were also the first owners of what is now Lacey Park, wherein the Nails Dance Pavilion and skating rink was located. They also operated a chauffeur and taxi service. On that fateful day, my grandparents, along with their then 2-year-old daughter, family members and friends, ran for their lives from our beloved Greenwood neighborhood, only to return to find our homes and our businesses looted and burned to the ground. These were fine, upstanding members of our community who simply wanted a piece of the American dream, but received truly a nightmare. However, they rebuilt and kept moving forward. Today, we pay homage to our family members and our community's strength, courage, and tenacity in the midst of one of the worst atrocities, not only in Tulsa, but U.S. history. It teaches us as a whole that when we face adversities in our own lives, to never give up, keep the faith, and keep moving forward. In closing, I would like to share a quote from that little 2-year-old girl I mentioned in the name of the late Dr. Cecilia Nels Palmer, who was my aunt, who was also a very well-known educator and community advocate here in Tulsa. She wrote, "There is no such thing as standing still when change comes, and all traditions are destroyed. When we have no past, we have no future." Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today as we cover this very significant moment in our shared history. If you're interested in connecting with the Commission, please continue to follow us on our social media platforms at tulsa2021.org and on our website. Tonight at 10:30 p.m., the exact time shots were fired, the first shots were fired that started the Race Massacre in Greenwood in 1921, we will have a private candlelight vigil. You can go to our Facebook page and watch and share and be with us as we take 10 minutes, a moment of silence, to remember the hundreds of people who lost their lives on May 31st through June 1st, 1921. Thank you again to Cox Communications for providing the digital infrastructure to do all of this today, and all of the news media and all who are covering today's events in Tulsa. Last but not certainly least, I'd like to thank our small but mighty marketing committee for leading the coordination of these events today, and the staff at 6PR for lending their resources, their contacts, and their expertise. Please like and share this event on your social media channels using the hashtag Greenwood Rising. Again, that's hashtag Greenwood Rising. In addition, Cox Communications is going to rebroadcast this throughout the week. You can go to our website at tulsa2021.org to see when those rebroadcast times will be taking place all week long. I would like to close with this quote, favorite of mine, from African-American author and writer James Baldwin, when he said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Thank you, and have a great afternoon.